In this video, I'm going to walk you through how I scale brands to 2 mil a year plus. And from all of the experience that I've got, there are 4 stages that will really help you grow to that 2 mil a year mark. If you're already making more than 2 mil a year in revenue, still watch this video if you're interested in adding an additional 2 mil to your top line annual revenue. How do I know this? Because we have done this in so many different industries. Here's an example, 850K a month in additional revenue in 3 months for this THC brand. Here's a weight loss brand, 600K a month in 6 months, an additional 500K a month in 3 months for this men's supplement brand, and the list goes on, okay? And we've been able to narrow this down now to 4 very distinct specific stages. And if you want to add that kind of revenue to your top line, or you feel like you've plateaued with your e-commerce brand, then absolutely 100% watch this video. Now, before I get into the stages, I think it's important that we understand the rules of the game, right? If we know how the game works, we essentially can win the game. Now, depending on how long you've been running ads, you will know that there is an old way and there is a new way. Now, Meta's Andromeda algorithm is something that has been made to sound very big and scary from marketing agency owners like myself or marketers like myself. And really, it's not. It's an opportunity for us to basically help Meta achieve their goal. And by doing that, we can make more money. So what is their goal? Okay, so Meta have changed their algorithm to push us in the direction of creating personalized ads. If we create a personalized ad experience for their users, the user will stay on the platform for longer. This will help Facebook make more money. And as a result, our ads will be more profitable and we will make more money. So the old way of running ads was that we would tell the algorithm exactly who to target with our ads. We'd say, put this ad in front of a 25-year-old female that is interested in X. We don't do that anymore, okay? The algorithm is now powerful enough to be able to scan the creative assets that you upload. And based on the characteristics of that creative asset, it will then recommend that ad to specific audiences. So now that we know that, what are the 3 things that Andromeda optimizes for? Okay, number 1 is user value. How likely is this specific person to take the desired action? Basically, how good is the ad, right? If you have a very basic, watered down, generic ad and it doesn't get anybody to take any sort of action, it's gonna be ranked as a low quality ad, and therefore it's not helping Andromeda achieve its goals of a personalized ad experience. So that's user value. Now, advertiser value is kind of the flip side of that. Like, how likely are we to achieve our goals as advertisers? If we take care of 1 and 3, then number 2 will take care of itself. I want to focus on 1 and 3. So number 1, quality of the ad, and then number 3 is the user experience. Now, we want to make sure that the ad that is shown to a specific person is actually very specifically for that person, right? It's an ad that is created to get that person to take the desired action, number 1, but also it's something that that person is likely to be interested in. Meta needs users to keep scrolling, engaging, keep going back, and we do that by having high quality ads. If you have the ugliest ad in the world, somebody's going to be so offended that they click off the video and they click off the platform. All of a sudden, you've lost Facebook a potential customer there, okay? Now we understand those 3 things that Andromeda is optimizing for, we can move on to how this now works, essentially. How does the algorithm work? How do we win in this situation? As I mentioned before, the old way no longer works. We don't tell Facebook or Instagram or Meta exactly what to do and who to put the ad in front of. Instead, creative is now the primary lever. The algorithm handles the targeting by looking at the creative, and that is now our main competitive advantage. So there's 2 parts of this, okay? We want the ad to be so specific that when the algorithm scans it, it's very clear who the ad is for, and so it can match the perfect person to that specific ad. So that's number 1. Let's make it easier for the algorithm by making it clear who the ad is for. Now, number 2 is creative volume, okay? So instead of just having 10 ads, if we all of a sudden now launch 200 ads, we 20 times our likelihood of being able to find a perfect match. So very important. We want creative specificity and diversity, and we also want creative volume. If out of every 10 ads, we only find 1 winner, if we only launch 10 ads, we're only likely to find 1 winning ad. Whereas if we can 10x the volume, now all of a sudden we potentially have 10 winning ads, right? That can be matched to different audience or pockets of audiences. Very, very important. Hopefully this makes sense and you now understand roughly in the amount of detail that you need to how the game works. And like I say, if we know how the game works, essentially we can play to win the game. Now, let's go through the 4 stages. Let me just take a quick drink. I feel like I'm shouting. Okay, cool. Stage 1, right? Product domination. Now, the best brands that I've worked with, all without a doubt, have the best product in the market. And there is no replacement for having a good fucking product. So what is the definition of a good product? A good product is basically, it's a product or service that people want. That is my definition of it. Don't want to overcomplicate it. It's not necessarily the most expensive. It's not necessarily even the one that has the most features. But what actually solves the problem in the most effective way? And in what scenario can we sell to what people actually want, essentially? That is a good product. So a few questions to help get you thinking along this sort of trail of thought. A good product solves a problem. Do people know that the problem exists? Number 1, have a think about it. Is it a problem that people are willing to pay to solve? So you don't want just a very minutiae, very tiny little incremental problem that nobody really cares about, because ultimately you're not going to make a lot of money solving a problem that nobody cares about solving. How many people have this problem? Essentially, that's your total addressable market. How certain is your solution? If you help people lose weight, but the chance of people losing weight through your program, let's say, is 10%, it's not very persuasive, is it? It's not really going to pull that many people in. If you had 100% likelihood to help people lose weight, for example, medical weight loss is a great example at the moment, it's absolutely in demand because the certainty is so high. How fast is your solution? Again, that speaks to what I've just spoken about, medical weight loss. It is a very quick, certain solution. And also, along this same trail of thought, how much effort is required for your solution to solve this problem? In that case, not much effort. That is a great product, right, in the sense of marketing. Now, just to make sure this is crystal clear, a good product is not something that you can only see the value in as the owner of the business, right? If it's a problem that only you care about, then ultimately you're not going to have a very established, very successful business. It's not something that necessarily just looks or sounds good. You cannot polish a turd, which is the English expression. If your product's not good, you can't make it look good, okay? Something that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. You need consistency, okay? Like if you really want to scale your business, find a way to make it produce consistent results, whatever that looks like for your business. And also, it's not something that is the same as what already exists. An example of this is when AG1 blew up, so many green type drinks wanted to come and work with us. A lot of them were just literally copycats of AG1. How many of them were successful? Not that many, because if you are copying somebody else's solution, you're always going to be second or third best, and ultimately you'll never have that first mover advantage. That is not an example of a great product. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably know who Alex Hormozi is. You've probably also seen this, but essentially it's a good way to understand what a good product is. He made this in terms of offer, but the same applies to the product here, which is dream outcome times perceived likelihood of achievement divided by time delay and effort sacrifice times effort and sacrifice. And basically that leads to how good your product is. That's the value. You can also look at your product or service as literally an exchange of value, which it also is. Now, put the work in at the start, okay? I cannot stress this enough. If you want to scale your business and you want a very successful, highly profitable e-commerce brand, do this at the start. Make sure you have the best product in the market. It pays to be the best, right? It's like, I don't know, let's say you're dating and you are the most attractive person in the school. You have the pick out of everybody. As soon as you start being second or third best, the amount of people that you have to choose from starts to diminish astronomically, right? So put the work in at the start. Do whatever you need to have a superior product. If that means delaying the rest of the stages in this video for the next 6 to 12 months, then delay it for the next 6 to 12 months. Don't care. Just make sure you do this, okay? Now, this is a little bit of a graph which shows the importance of having the best product. If you have a great product, it's easier to sell. Having a product that's easier to sell means that you get it into the hands of more people, so you essentially get more customers. More customers that love the product because it's superior leads to more referrals. So when you pay to get one customer, that person turns to 2, 3, like wildfire. It spreads, it has virality. And that leads to then more social proof. Imagine every one of your friends starts talking about the product. What's then going to happen? It becomes easier to sell. And this is a flywheel, and it's hard to measure in that sense, but just trust me, have a great product and the rest will take care of itself in that sense. And then from good to great, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of more of the same. Reviews, order the best, make it better. Oh yeah, this is how you can make sure you go from having a good product to a great product. Look at reviews, get feedback from everybody, order the best products and make them better. This is something that I recommend to everybody. Literally order the top 10 or 5 products in your market and analyze them as you would some sort of competitor analysis. List all the features. What do you like about this one? What do you not like about that one? And then make sure that your product has all of the things of all of the best products and none of the things that you don't like about your competitors as well, and literally make the best product possible. Speak to your suppliers and ask customers, okay? It's not rocket science. Now, the other thing I want to go through in terms of product domination to make sure that before we even get into marketing, you are set up for success is positioning, okay? Don't be wallpaper. What is wallpaper? What's my definition of wallpaper? That is basically a product that is plain, uninteresting, or the same. Don't just make the same product as everybody else. Think about being different. Sometimes different is better than better, okay? And that genuinely is the thing with marketing. An example of this is IM8. They sell a similar drink to Athletic Greens. Essentially, it's all of your nutrients in one drink. Everybody copied AG1 and they made the same drink green. IM8 came out and they made a red drink, which is the complete opposite to everybody else in the market. And straight away it had its own viral effect because it was so different to everything else out there. So remember that, right? And use inverse thinking or inversion. It's a way of thinking through a problem in reverse. Basically, it's sometimes difficult to think of how can you make it different, but instead if you think of how could I make the most boring, similar product to everybody else, and you just do the opposite of that, that might be an easier way of you to think of how to address this sort of situation here, okay? So how do you avoid being wallpaper? Number one, make your solution or what you're offering different. I've kind of touched on this, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but who's the product for? What is their number one problem? What are you trying to solve? Who else is solving the problem with a different sort of solution? Are there other solutions that exist in the market? And what other problems do your target customers have? These kind of questions will help you think along the right lines. Now we know what the rest of the market is doing. You just do the opposite or be the opposite, right? Like literally think of how can you be the opposite of something else. An example, I literally got my dog groomed yesterday. And I was thinking, well, my dog's quite difficult, right? He hates being groomed. He's quite awkward. I always have to explain that he's nervous. It takes longer than it really should do. If I was to open up a dog's groomers, I would potentially just do that only for nervous dogs. And if you have a dog that's completely fine, easy, you take them to any other dog groomers. But for us, we are specialists. And just in being slightly different, we are positioning ourselves away from the rest of the market. Now, new solutions go viral, okay? You will have seen this a million different times. If you think of any sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Any disrupting product or solution or brand, a disruptor brand, usually it's something that is completely new and it has its own viral effect because it's so different. Okay, step 2. Separate yourself even further from the market through positioning. So if we've got a crowded market over here, we've got a niche over here, just by being completely different, we free ourselves up to compete with less other competitors, right? An example of this is one of the brands that we scaled from 35K a month, 650K a month. They sold a weight loss product. That's probably the most competitive market in the entire world. Now, the way that we scaled that business was through differentiation. So instead of selling to everybody, we specifically focused on African-American female audiences that were over the age of 45, that were going through menopause, and they were struggling to get rid of that stubborn hormonal weight. Now that's so specific. It's also so niche in terms of our positioning that we start to separate ourselves. And the thing is, when you speak to that person, they're going to see your brand as being made for them rather than just being this broad brand that helps everybody. And so they don't really feel like it calls them, and they don't engage with your ads, they don't engage with your brand, and therefore they're likely to go to somebody else that does. Hopefully that makes sense. I've got an example here. I'm not going to go through it because I've just kind of given you a real life example based on a recent experience. Now we'll go on to step 3. Now, step 3 is separating yourself from the rest of the competition through pricing. Again, guys, I know I'm spending a bit of time here on like product domination before we get into the next stages, but you will be thankful if you get all of this right. You can get a lot wrong, including marketing, and you can still do really well. Now, the best way to describe positioning through price and how to differentiate and dominate your market is just to remember that the middle is usually for losers. Not every single time, but in most cases, you benefit from either being the most expensive in the market, because at least you get the benefit of being perceived as the highest quality, premium, and sought after brand. And you also benefit from the lowest cost, because now you open up your total addressable market. Typically, the middle is for losers, right? And there's no clearer example of this than clothing industry. So you can see here, Gucci, Dior, Louis Vuitton, these are the expensive creme de la creme brands. How much are these brands worth in total? 180 billion with a B. We compare that to the cheaper alternatives, Primark, H&M, Gap, 47.2 billion, okay? So, I mean, it's still a lot of money, right? But if we look in the middle, and even looking at the brands in the middle, you probably feel the same way. Like, we all have kind of heard of them. Do we really want them? Do we like grow up thinking I want to wear Ted Baker or All Saints? Not in the same way. And have we probably bought from these before? Potentially, but you can see in the numbers, right? The middle is for losers in this case. It pays to be either the most expensive or the cheapest. Try not to be in this no man's land in the middle. Okay, it's rarely both. I'm going to give you a quick example here through Apple. This was at the time I took the screenshot from one of our courses. It was a couple of years ago, so obviously this is a little bit out of date in terms of the newest iPhone here. But you can see this is a UK phone comparison site. 7 out of 8 of these phones on here are all Apple, right? These are popular phone contracts. There's only one that isn't an Apple phone. If we then look at the best Android phones, you can see here the prices: $500, $800, $700, like $450. These are fairly cost-effective phones when we then compare it to the iPhones. The iPhone in every single one of these cases is more expensive, and yet more people are buying it, right? It's not like people are buying based on the iPhone being the cheapest. And if you look at market share as well, Apple are dominating the market, and they also have the highest price product. And I think it goes without saying, it's definitely the most sought after phone. If you buy one of these, typically, sorry if you are an Android user, in my opinion, other than maybe Samsung, you're probably compromising and going with one of these alternatives because it is more affordable. But Apple usually, I mean, it's in the numbers, it pays to be the most expensive, right? Okay, that's product domination. Now let's get into some juicy bits in terms of sort of the marketing, right? So stage 2, once you've got a product that can genuinely dominate the market, let's move on to stage 2, which is desire triggers. So before we even get into the ad account, I'm not going to go through the ad account now anyway. Like, if you're wanting to know about how to run an ad and the buttons to click, this is probably not the video for you. This is higher level, right? This is how to get to 2 million a year plus, or add 2 million a year. Now, stage 2 is desire triggers. Don't just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Don't just copy your competitors and go into the ad library and just literally replicate the ads that they're doing. Go through this process, right? It's deep research. Get on a call with your team and ask each other. You want the product person, you want the person who is maybe the customer service rep. You want to be able to put all of these things together like glue, and you need to understand the exact psychology of a customer and the ins and outs of your product. Understand those two things and everything else becomes a lot easier. You will then take that information and then you'll go into places like Reddit forums, for example. So typically, like, let's say you used to work with me, we'll get on a breakout session. We'll ask you a million questions about your product and your customer, and then we'll go straight into Reddit and we'll look at how this customer thinks and understand their exact psychology. Now, why do we go into Reddit? If you're a user of Reddit, you will know it's like the Wild West. In a good way, potentially, depending on which way you look at it. Reddit is great because it's anonymous. And with anonymosity, I don't know, I can't say that word. With it being anonymous, you get people's honest thoughts and opinions. And as a marketer, that is exactly what we want. The more I can understand your psychology, the easier it is for me to sell to that psychology and what you're thinking right now. So here's an example. Let's go with the route of medical weight loss. We did this for a client, right? So we looked into the psychology of this customer, and one of the blockers that was stopping people from going through a medical weight loss journey was that they were worried that they would lose weight so quickly that their friends and family would think they're sick and they've got cancer. Now that is so specific. That's so obscure. People aren't going to mention that on a Facebook post. They're not going to give you that feedback in a survey. But actually, if that's genuinely what's stopping people from buying, then it's useful to know that, right? So what we did in this situation is we made an ad that addressed this, and we just explained that actually there is a way where you can have the best of both worlds and lose weight quickly and also look the healthiest you've ever looked. And a lot of that comes down to nutrition. And in this case, not only did we offer medical weight loss, but we also added a nutritionist and a coach and all that kind of stuff. That helped astronomically with our acquisition cost and ultimately our ability to scale. So Reddit forums are massively useful. The other thing we do a lot is look at Trustpilot reviews. So in this situation, we looked at one of the biggest players in this space, which is MedExpress. We looked at their negative reviews to understand what are the patterns of frustration. You want to sell people what they want, right? And so if people are already customers of a competitor and they're being underserved in some way, in this case, the delivery of the medication was often late. And if you miss your medication, a lot of the time, you then will relapse. Relapse is a bit of a strong word, but you basically start binge eating, and a lot of the progress you've made would start to be reversed because all of a sudden you've blown through a load of calories and you put the weight back on, right? Very important pain point. If we can make sure that we address this and we could put an in and out, let's say we created an ad, we could have an ad that said 99% of customers receive their order on time. And if your delivery happens to be delayed by more than 12 hours, we will refund you entirely and you will get the medication completely for free. Imagine if you as one of these disgruntled customers of one of your main competitors and you then saw an ad that spoke specifically to you about your exact pain point and it hit you right in between the eyeballs. Of course you would switch, right? It's just common sense. You would definitely switch. So this whole section here is about understanding your customers' desire triggers. And once you know their desire triggers, you can sell into those desire triggers. So instead of just describing what you do, let's say we've got a bottle of water. I mean, this is a glass, but you wouldn't want to just say, this is two hydrogen molecules bonded with an oxygen molecule, because nobody will want to buy it. But if I understand the person on the other side of this video, let's say in your case, you want to get to 2 million a year, or you want to add 2 million a year in revenue, I would say something like, did you know that if you were dehydrated, your cognitive performance declines by up to 25%? How much faster could you scale to 2 million a year if I gave you 25% extra brain power? All of a sudden, I haven't even spoken about the water, by the way, or the product, but I'm selling into your psychology. I'm selling into your desire triggers. Hopefully that makes sense. I think it will do. Cool. The next part of desire triggers is to use actors instead of creators. In 90% of cases, use actors, not creators. Unless you literally have a young TikTok thriving type of brand, then fair enough, creator might actually make sense. But in most cases, using an actor in what we have found through the data will get you a lower acquisition cost. Now, why is this? A creator typically is samey, right? Like they're 25-year-old female and they make ads with that melodic type of tune. You know, I've just been sent this product by this company. It does 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it just sounds like every other ad. It sounds like wallpaper. It's not persuasive. It doesn't come across as authentic. Whereas if, let's say we are selling to that menopausal audience that I mentioned before, if they see a 25-year-old female creator that looks like they've never, had any sort of weight issues in their life, it's not going to resonate. But if we use an actor, we can make sure they're the right age. If we want to talk into being a mother and having 3 children and struggling to find the time to go to the gym, for example, we can make sure the person in the video can really portray that. And an actor knows how to follow a script as well. And so through testing scripts, we can split test messaging And we can't really do that with a creator. They're going to speak in broad terminology. An actor can follow an exact script. So if we want to replicate a situation of a real customer of ours, let's say it is that busy mother where the house is a mess, they've got to clean, we can go through their entire day through a script. We can make sure in the video the actor shows them cleaning the house, going to work, coming back, feeding the kids, reading a bedtime story, all of these different kind of things. And within that, not having time to go to the gym. Okay, I'm going pretty deep into this example now, but hopefully that makes sense. Use an actor because you can make sure the actor replicates your exact target customer. And by doing that, that target customer is going to resonate with the ad a lot more, and your acquisition cost is going to be lower, and that's going to allow you to profitably spend more on ads. Cool. Now we do this. I mean, we've got Totality.com. It's a new thing that we own, which is basically a platform that has hundreds of actors on it. And what we're able to do is we'll upload the script that we create. It will then scan all of the portfolio videos of hundreds of different actors. And based on their previous experience and also the tonality and the requirements and the language and the B-roll requirements of the script, for example, it will match the perfect actors to that script. So in this case, it could say the best person for this script is Brittany and Daria because they both have children and they have filmed similar videos in the past and they're the right age, as an example. And so it will help you shortcut some of that and get to lower acquisition cost. Now, then this is locked. I mean, if you want a demo, just drop me a message or comment on this and I'll jump on a quick call with you and we can kind of go through it. But hopefully this makes sense. Okay. Now, the next stage, I mean, in between this, by the way, obviously make the ads, launch the ads. This kind of goes without saying, right? Use the actors, create ads based on the desire triggers, sell into these audiences, split test the messaging, find what works, and then move on to this next stage. Stage 3 is persona funnels. Okay, again, I'm skipping through a lot of the nuances. I don't want to spend the time in this video going through like which buttons to click. I'm assuming the person watching this is a fairly advanced e-commerce founder, right? Now, stage 3 is persona funnels. Now, basically, once you know your exact target customer, and you also have split tested the desire triggers and you start to understand what is resonating with that audience, you now want to launch what we call persona funnels, which is basically create an entire funnel specifically around that key audience or that key persona. This goes back to Andromeda, which want us to basically create a personalized ad experience. So we're going even deeper into that route. We call this going T-shaped, right? So you want to test wide angles, you want to test all of the different personas that you can think of. And then once you find what clicks, you go all in, you go deep, and that's why we call it going T-shaped. Now, going back to this, let's say we're selling, in this case, I mean, we did this for a CBD supplement brand. We started selling to to parents that have kids that have ADHD because we did the studies and we found that this product actually really helps people that have ADHD. And through the positioning and the testing, we found that when we talk about it in kids, because that's such an underserved audience, we had much better acquisition costs. So what we did when we identified the best ad, the best audience, we then created a landing page around that specifically. We call this a persona funnel because this speaks only to this very specific audience. So if you're not somebody that has a kid with ADHD, that has ADHD, this is not going to make sense. But the ad in this situation basically said, ask yourself these 7 questions before medicating your child with ADHD. And then when they click through the ad, they would get through to this landing page and that would be reinforced and we'd take them on a journey that felt really specific. We'd help them with the problems. We'd educate them so that by the time we actually present the product, the intent's very high. They're a warm audience. The conversion rate's a lot higher. The acquisition cost is a lot lower. What does that mean? It means we can spend more on ads to make more money. Very important. Persona funnels, okay? This can look this can take so many different shapes and sizes, and it could be a specific landing page, product page, educational page like this one. The funnel is up to you, right? Test different funnels, see what works. Obviously, this works for this specific angle, but in your case, it might look slightly different. Part of the persona funnel is also angle funnels, right? So once you've nailed your angle, instead of having a very effective angle in the ad and then they click onto the landing page, and now you're hitting them with all of these different angles of like this benefit, this feature for this person. Make sure it's a seamless journey. And so, for example, we have this brand here that we're working with, and they sold it's basically it's a dental product for dogs, right? You take this and it is kind of a replacement for brushing your dog's teeth. And that in itself has loads of different pain points. Now, the angle that we found was working the best was when we spoke about, if you don't do this, this is how much it could cost you in dental fees, right? Every time you go to the every time you go to the vet, it's going to cost X amount. That adds up. And if you don't solve the problem now and it's too late, it's going to cost you thousands instead of costing 20 or 30 each month, right? As an example. Now, because that ad worked really well, we then wanted to test a specific funnel so that when you click on the landing page, instead of talking about all of these different things, we just go so much deeper into this one message, into this one angle. We make sure the testimonials reinforce it. We have a picture of a vet in the actual landing page, and all of the testimonials also refer to this. Save me $500 in vet fees, right? As an example, 16 years old, black teeth gone. Even my vet said it. Like, we're going, here, diabetic dog, anesthetic avoided, vet, in literally every single one of these. We're reinforcing that same message. We already know that somebody's clicked on the ad. They are showing some level of interest in the message that we are presenting to them. What we now want to do is go a little bit deeper, dig our elbow into it, and get them off the fence onto our side and get them to become a customer. Hopefully that makes sense. That is one example. Here's another example. It's a different brand. This was a supplement company. I'm eating better, sleeping more, taking supplements. So why do I still feel off? Again, this is relevant to the ad that they clicked on. Now, an example of a company that do this really, really well is IM8. They have the one product fundamentally, which, I mean, if you don't know, they basically have a drink that has all the nutrients, vitamins, all in the one product. They have different landing pages and funnels depending on exactly who you are and the ad that you clicked on. So here is an example of the landing page that you go through if you're an existing customer. 8 reasons the new IM8 Daily Essentials Pro outbeat the previous formula and everything else on the market. This one is specifically for GLP-1 users. 7 reasons not to do your GLP-1 without IM8. This one here is for a menopausal audience. And so if you see an ad that attracts you as a menopausal female, then you'll be reinforced, or this landing page will reinforce the ad that you just clicked on. And this is all specific to this. Your body changed, your nutrition should too. And this, again, slightly different. Probiotics angle, 6 reasons to stop buying probiotics and swap to IM8 today. I think it goes without saying, right? If you have clicked on an ad for a very specific reason, you've got a certain level of interest. If we can dig a little bit deeper, the chances are we can get you to actually buy from us, right? Okay. Now, finally, stage 4. All of these stages are massively important. I'd say these stages have different reasons. Stage 1, I mean, that is the most important, guys. You can't scale a shit product. Stage 2 helps you understand the psychology of a customer so that you can understand how to attract new customers profitably at scale. Number 3 helps you refine that even further so that you are genuinely minimizing the acquisition cost so that you can continue to scale without seeing rising acquisition costs or massively fluctuating revenue month to month. Now, stage 4 is the 80-20 growth loop. If you want like serious scale, for example, how we have scaled to 850K a month in 3 months, you need to make sure you apply the 80-20 growth loop. Now, this has 2 or 3 different stages. A is the top and bottom 20% rule. Basically, this means when you're running the ads and you've got all of this data, look at what are your top 20% of ads, what are your bottom 20% of ads, and then start to build a list of do's and don'ts. Assess ads based on a specific metric. I recommend ROAS, right? Return on ad spend. The reason I recommend ROAS is because this is going to be the most consistent one for you to be able to compare. Because if you use acquisition cost, for example, you might say, okay, an acceptable acquisition cost is $15 and anything above that is too high. But if you spend $30 to acquire a customer, but that customer buys 10 different products, okay, that's now an acceptable acquisition cost because the return is high, right? Whereas ROAS factors in all of that. So I'd recommend ROAS. If for whatever reason you're not getting enough sales, I mean, you can start to look at some of these things, but genuinely, if possible, I would avoid CTR, CPC, CPM. It's all fluffy. You don't want to base your analysis and your next steps on inconclusive data. You don't want an ad that just gets lots of attention, but ultimately no sales. At the end of the day, we are running ads to make money, to scale our business. So use ROAS as your leading indicator, okay? Now, once you assess the top and bottom 20% of ads, build a list of do's and don'ts. This doesn't have to be any more complicated than what you are seeing on screen. Do's, Shannon, Roxanne, they are consistent top performers. And so as a next step, we're going to make more ads with Shannon and Roxanne in the videos. Any motion in the first 3 seconds seems to have a lower acquisition cost and a higher ROAS. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to do more of that. Example of motion in the video could be me pouring, for example, liquid from one glass to the other, right? That is an example of motion in a hook. Let's say whenever we show that transfer of liquid from one thing to the next, it gets more people to stop scrolling. If that is the case, great. Let's do more of that. Another example of do's is whenever we reference stubborn hormonal weight, it leads to a higher return on ad spend. And so that is a pattern that we are noticing. Let's do more of it. If we analyze the bottom 20% of ads and we see that all of the bottom performers consistently include these 3 things, then let's do less of it, right? Let's not explain the science behind the product if actually that's not resonating with the audience. Don't show the bottle in the opening 3 seconds. If that's leading to a lower performing ad, then let's not do more of it. And if we find that if we target audiences less than 25 by having a creative that attracts a younger audience, actually every time we do that, the performance drops. Let's not do any more of that. Hopefully that makes total sense. Okay. Now, the other thing here is the 80-20 growth loop, okay? Which is basically, once you have this list of do's and don'ts, going forward, 80% of your budget should be spent on doing more of what's working and less of what isn't working. So scientifically manufacture your next winning ad, right? Look at all of this and make more ads that do all of this and don't do all of these. And that's 80% of your budget, right? So if we're going to launch 10 ads, for example, then 8 of the ads should be based on this, and then 2 of the ads should be wildcards. You don't want to just keep doing this because you'll run out of new angles, and you could find that this eventually dies down, and now you don't have any other things to lean on. Ultimately, you want many different winning ad angles that you can, lean on as you scale. And so by allocating 20% of your budget to testing wildcards, then you are likely to find other angles that could convert for you at a good acquisition cost at scale. Now, obviously, this is using a basic example with only 10 ads. Ideally, you're doing 50 ads, 100 ads, 200 ads, 500 ads, depending on your budget, right? And you'll have more wildcards in this. What is a wildcard? A wildcard is basically a risky idea, right? High risk, high reward. It's a silly idea that maybe somebody else hasn't tested. You haven't seen it anywhere else. You were in the shower, you thought of it. It's not something that you'd bet your life on, but if it does well, it's going to have outsized returns. And you want to be testing some of these outlandish ideas. They are wildcards, right? Now, it's worth noting, if your ads are performing terribly, and I genuinely mean terribly, and you're nowhere near profitability, you can't see a route to optimizing yourself towards being profitable because the numbers are so low. In that case, flip it, right? Instead of doing 80% based on what's working better than others, do 80% of your ads as wildcard ads, right? This is the time where it pays to be a little bit riskier because at the moment you're so far away from where you need to be that you should actually just be testing 80% new wildcard ideas and only 20% building on the do's and don'ts. Now, the last part of all of this, if you want to add a good amount of revenue to your top and even bottom line, you need to spend more, right? You won't spend more if the ads aren't profitable. So make sure you go through all of these stages, get your numbers looking, good, healthy, make sure the ads are performing in the way that they need to, and then ultimately spend more money on ads. If you have a machine and for every $1 you spend, you get $3 back, Of course, we want to put as many dollars as we can, as long as you've got the margin for it, into that machine, get the product into as many hands as possible, and that is going to help grow your business. Now, as you spend more, you are going to hit complexities, you're going to reach sort of some level of fluctuation. If you repeat this process constantly, you will continuously remove the bottlenecks and the blockers. You'll find more winning angles, and that will allow you to continuously spend more while still maintaining profitability and still getting high ROAS and a low acquisition cost. This all, I have no doubt, makes complete sense because I have done this a million times. It's not simple. I mean, it is simple, but it's not easy. So go through all of this. Make sure that you follow the steps in sequential order. Do not skip having a good product and go straight into persona funnels, for example. And I guarantee if you follow all of these stages, there is no way in which you cannot achieve these kind of results.